Hello and welcome to a special interview for The Wire. My guest today
Hello.
is a very special person. She is the former president of Sri Lanka, Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga. Over the last few days, President Kumaratunga has been suggesting proposals for a comprehensive restructuring of Sri Lanka's governance to tackle the two crises the country faces, a political crisis as well as an economic crisis. And that will be the heart of the interview I conduct with her today. But first, I want to ask her how she responds to the swearing in on Thursday of Ranil Wickremesinghe as Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, whether he believes he is the right response to the crisis the country faces, and the fact that four ministers have joined his cabinet, all from the Rajapaksa party, on Saturday. Welcome to the program, President Kumaratunga. Let me start by asking you how you view the appointment of Ranil Wickremesinghe as Prime Minister at this moment of crisis. On the one hand, he has done 5 previous terms as Prime Minister and he has a lot of experience. But on the other hand, he lost his own election in 2020. He is only an MP because he got onto the national list, and his is a one-man party. So is he the man to solve the crisis the country faces?
Well, uh, I think the answers are not, first and foremost, thank you for inviting me to your program. And it's good to be here. And it's good to be talking to you after many, many years. And now to get to your question, as you know, a vast majority of the people in this country are participating in a massive protest movement started by the young, led by the young girls and boys who are occupying the streets, who are occupying Golface Green, uh, and so on. And they have been supported by millions of adults. And opinion polls have shown, valid opinion polls have shown that 85 to 90% of the people of this country, young and old, want the government to go, and they want the present president, Gotabaya Rajapaksa, to resign or go away. So in this situation, he's not going. He's trying to dig his heels in. He was very weak politically, and at that time, Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe accepted to be prime minister. I don't know why, when he was invited, and he is now the prime minister nominated by Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who the whole country wants out, and he is the prime minister of the SLPP, the Rajapaksa party, but there's no one else in that government. So all the other parties are refusing to join because they say they are with the people. They want all the Rajapaksas to leave and that government not to come back. So now, actually, what has happened with the appointment or the acceptance of Ranil Wickremesinghe to be prime minister, the Gotabaya Rajapaksa has dug his heels in firmly. His position has been somewhat stabilized. I won't say completely because young people are continuing their protests. So politically, it doesn't seem to be able to, this whole thing would not solve the problem. But
Can I ask,
on the other,
in
yes,
your eyes, has Ranil Wickremesinghe made a terrible mistake? Or has he done the honorable thing to step in and help the country at a moment of crisis? Which of the two? A terrible mistake or an honorable decision?
I wouldn't take you up on both of those. Honorable thing or terrible mistake, it's something in between. The country is in a terrible mess. I think in our 3,000-year known history, we have never been in this situation. There's no food, there's no fuel. Vehicles, there are vehicles. I'm not going to go into all that. I think all the people there in India know this, and in all over the world. Fuel queues outside gas stations are stretching for more than 1-2 kilometers. Electricity cuts every day for the last 2 months, 5, 6, 7 hours. In my house, the official residence of the former president, we had cuts of 10 hours at a time. Now it's reduced to about 5 or 6 hours. So the situation is dire.
Tell me this. Does
somebody
Mr. Wickramasinghe have support in Parliament? I know, as you pointed out, that the Rajapaksa party, the SLPP, supports him, and the 4 ministers who joined his government all came from the SLPP. But will he get support from the Sri Lanka Freedom Party? Will he get support from Sajid Premadasa's SJP?
Well, at the moment, they have not. The SJB says no. The Sri Lanka Freedom Party, you call it my party, that party, the present president has chucked me out. I'm officially still a member of the party, but he's sacked me from all the positions I held, except the patron of the party, which he can't change. But he has given instructions not to invite me for any party discussions. So that situation has been going on for 4 years. But I'm in touch with the party people. They come to see me. They want me to come back and all that. So the SLFP has only 14 MPs in parliament. They have, I think they're still divided. They are trying to decide what to do. At the moment, Ranil Wickramasinghe does not have the support of a single opposition member of parliament.
In other words, he is completely dependent upon the Rajapaksas. Without the Rajapaksas, he would have just his own vote in parliament.
Yeah, as it is now.
What about the Sri Lankan people? Does he have the support of the Sri Lankan people? And in particular, does he have the support of the people protesting at Goldface Green? He's tried over the weekend to reach out to them. Has he been successful, or has he been rebuffed?
I think he has been rebuffed. The young people won't go out, and they are very angry that somebody has come in to sort of make him stronger, or trying to make him stronger. So they have not responded positively for the moment. I am told that Ranil Wickramasinghe and his small team are canvassing the opposition, the SJB and the SLFP, trying to get them in. So up to now, nobody has yet made a decision. Because a lot of them are angry about the way it happened. Because apparently Ranil Wickramasinghe did not discuss with anybody in the opposition. He did not tell them he was going to join. And after joining, he has put them before the fait accompli, and he's asking them to come. So they are not very happy about it. What will happen in the future, I don't know. You know how things are.
One more question, President Kumaratunga, before I come to what is the heart of this interview, your proposals for a complete restructuring of the governance of Sri Lanka. And that one question is, clearly, as you said yourself, Gotabaya Rajapaksa has dug in his heels, he's not going to go, but the people of Sri Lanka want him to go. We also now know that Ranil Wickramasinghe, who's been appointed Prime Minister, has a reputation of protecting the Rajapaksas. So can this combination of Gotabaya Rajapaksa and Ranil Wickramasinghe actually restore political harmony and economic health? Or will it only make an already dire situation worse?
I cannot analyze what's going to happen yet, because the situation is extremely volatile and changing every day. But knowing the two people, it would be difficult for them to get on. Knowing what the SLPP members think of the UNP and Ranil Wickramasinghe personally, there could be a lot of clashes. So it's going to be an unstable situation. Of course, on the other hand, when the country is in such bad straits, that a senior leader tries to resolve the problems seems a good thing. But the manner in which you resolve it is important. He has to get the support of. At this moment, this country needs a national government with all the forces in it. But the way Ranil Wickramasinghe joined this government does not augur well for people to come in. If at all, he will have to bribe and offer all kinds of things to take people in. And you know that that's not a rare thing in your country and mine. But still, it's not politically, it's not a positive and constructive manner in which this has happened.
Let's then, at this point, President Kumaratunga, come to what is really the heart of this interview. a series of proposals that you have put forward, which very kindly you have shared with me, for a complete governance restructuring, an overhaul of the system of government in your country, because you believe that is the only way of tackling the combined political and economic crisis the country faces. For the benefit of an audience who's not aware of the details of your proposals, I'll go through them one by one, step by step, so that people can be both informed and understand. I believe the first stage is, in fact, for the president to appoint a prime minister who is, and I'm quoting you, an independent person acceptable to the majority of MPs. When you say an independent person, do you mean someone from outside parliament, from outside politics?
May not totally be outside politics, could be a former politician, could be a highly respected Sri Lankan, who all the political parties in parliament would agree to. Because, if you appoint one person, now, for example, at the moment, some people, some parties have problems in joining the government only because they don't like Ranil Wickremesinghe. So that's why I suggested an independent person. And there are a few names being bandied about. I don't want to mention them here. Fairly acceptable senior people.
So you're talking of an independent person who could be a former politician, but this would be a person who's highly respected, looked up to by everyone, and acceptable to everyone. Now, the second stage is that you say, after appointing this person prime minister, the president, that is Gotabaya Rajapaksa, must immediately resign, and the newly appointed prime minister, this eminent person, would automatically become the president. In other words, what you're doing is to ensure that a person of eminence and independence becomes president fairly quickly and clearly.
Yes. But in an interim government, as I say, because we have to have elections, the people are asking for elections, and that would be the final solution. This, what I'm suggesting is for a maximum period of 6 months, and then to hold elections.
So this is an interim government for a maximum period of 6 months. Now, the third stage, according to your proposals, is that the new president, let's remind the audience, is in fact this eminent person who was first brought in as prime minister and then succeeded Gotabaya Rajapaksa as president. This eminent person would appoint a cabinet with a maximum of 12 ministers representing parliament, and he would have to select MPs who don't have allegations of wrongdoing against them. So you have a very interesting system. The president will be an eminent person who wasn't previously necessarily a politician, but the cabinet would comprise MPs chosen for their integrity from parliament. Is that right?
Yes. Why I say this is we have a very strict constitutional stipulation. We have to work within the present constitution until it is amended, because I'm also suggesting, like everybody, that we should either abolish this constitution or amend it severely. And the first factor that we all ask for is the abolition of the executive presidency with its excessive powers. So but we had worked with the present constitution at the moment, and the present constitution very, very clearly stipulates in its section 42 that all cabinet members, ministers, must be elected members of parliament.
Okay.
That is why it's from parliament.
Now, this interim government that, as you say, would last for 6 months, I gather has two primary tasks to perform. One, as you said, is abolish the executive presidency. That means you have to go through a process of constitutional amendment. And the second task, I presume, is to take emergency action to tackle the economic crisis which is facing the country. Are those the two primary tasks?
Yes. And also, equally important, the whole country is asking for anti-corruption systems, because they know that the major reason, I won't say the only reason, the major reason for the terrible economic situation in the country is not the pandemic, but the corruption of the Rajapaksa government, the two governments.
And therefore, an anti-corruption system that tackles the corruption of the Rajapaksa government, and I presume we mean the Rajapaksa family as well, is a third priority for the interim government.
immediately, because any government, interim or not, will have to start functioning so that the anti-corruption system, the systems, procedures, laws will stipulate how the government should act in calling for tenders, in purchases and all that, because that's where the corruption begins. The system has already
Absolutely.
been drawn up. The system has already been drawn up. It's something that happened during my government, where we were able to reduce corruption hugely and thereby save a lot of money, even while we were spending lots of money on the other hand on a war. But this has been amended and developed by a committee of people.
Now, the proposals that you put forward and which you very kindly shared with me also have two critical councils. These would be of great interest, not just to an Indian, but an international audience. So I'll take you through the two critical councils step by step. The first is a constitutional council, which you say should be chaired by the Speaker of the House of Parliament, with the Prime Minister and Leader of the Opposition and members. But very importantly, there will be 7 other members who are distinguished citizens from the professions and from academia. Can you explain to an audience who's not familiar with this term, what is the significance of this constitutional council and why
Well,
is
we
it so?
already have a constitutional council in this country. It's not a new thing. We have a constitutional council that nominates the 6 independent, what is called the 6 independent commissions. All this system was first created by the 17th Amendment to the Constitution. We now have 20 amendments. The 17th Amendment during my government. We brought in this system of independent commissions, the Public Service Commission, the Police Commission, the Judicial Services Commission, the Bribery and Corruption Commission. There was one already, but we amended it and strengthened it. And such commissions, the Audit Commission, to ensure good governance within the government. This was brought in for the first time by my government in 2004, by, as I said, the 17th Amendment, 2001. And then the Rajapaksa government just threw it out.
And you're revitalizing it. You're revitalizing this.
It was revitalized in 2015 by the government of Sirisena and Ranil Wickremesinghe. But then again, when another Rajapaksa came into power, he changed it. He changed it in the sense he made it ineffective by appointing.
Can you explain? I can understand the role played by the independent commissions. They ensure good governance, whether it's to do with the police or to do with other areas of public life. What is the role of the Constitutional Council?
The Constitutional Council, actually, the Speaker is the chairman as it is now, and there are other respected members. They are nominated by the President of the country in discussion with the Leader of the Opposition. But often the President appoints whoever he wants, like is the case after Gotabaya Rajapaksa came in, and there are people who are just not suitable to be there. So the Constitutional Council's main function is to appoint the commissions, the 6 commissions, but that also the President suggests to the Constitutional Council, and the Constitutional Council finally decides to appoint them. If a president is determined, then he can get his way, like the Rajapaksas did, Mahinda Rajapaksa especially.
I take your point. The reason why you want the majority of the members of the Constitutional Council, that is to say 7 members, to be distinguished citizens from the professions and from academia, is to ensure that the Constitutional Council cannot be overridden by any president, that they will stand up and do what is right and not fall under the influence of any individual.
Exactly. Now, the other council,
that in turn will ensure that the independent commissions that determine the functioning of the police or other services are properly chosen commissions with people of integrity.
Correct. So that those are actually the major sectors of government. If those function properly, the government would function well and democratically.
So all of this will ensure efficient functioning and integrity of functioning. Is that right?
Yes. And democratic governance.
In some senses, the second council that's mentioned in the proposals that you very kindly shared with me, to me, as an outsider, seems the most critical of all. You say, and I'm quoting you, a council of state should be immediately appointed at the same time as the cabinet. Its chairman will be one of the 7 distinguished citizens who are members of the Constitutional Council. In other words, its chairman will not be the president or the prime minister or a politician. And secondly, this Council of State will review important laws and policies before they are presented to Parliament by the government. And these are particularly policies to do with the economy, with governance, health, and education. And secondly, this Council of State may also propose laws to the cabinet and the government. In other words, to me as a layman and an outsider, the Council of State seems more important than the cabinet.
No. The Council of the Cabinet, actually, this was proposed because in Sri Lanka we have a serious problem of governments, people getting elected to government, and during the entire period they are in government, not being responsible to the people who elected them, to the country, in other words, and then they go back again to the elections, tell some lies to the people and get re-elected or not. So this was to democratize governance in Sri Lanka, and the people, the thousands and thousands of young people who are protesting still on the streets, they are demanding people's participation. It's a huge outburst of flowering, let us say, blossoming of people's power. And they are demanding people's participation in government, that the cabinet of ministers and the government per se does not take the decisions as they want and violate all kinds of accepted norms. So that is why I thought of this, that there would be a parallel organization. The government definitely outweighs this organization because the government is not bound to take their decision. The government has to consult them, take their views, but if they so wish, they can go against it.
This is very important and interesting, and forgive me, I don't mean to interrupt, but you're clarifying something. This is a parallel institution to the cabinet and the government. That's number one. Secondly, it will be required of the cabinet and the government to consult them, either
and take their views seriously. And take
their views seriously, but not necessarily accept their views.
Not necessarily accept their views, because then you are really degrading the government. There's no point in the people voting for them. And let me tell you that this system, I actually borrowed a leaf from the French system. In France, they have something called the Conseil d'État, the Council of State. And they have a second council called the Conseil économique et social, Economic, Social and Environmental Council. I married the two because we haven't had, and it has functioned properly in France for over 200 years. Since the time
and the important thing, as you point out, is that this Council of State has the right to review important laws and policies before they are presented to Parliament. And these are laws and policies to do with the economy, governance, health and education. But it also has the right to propose laws and policies to the government. It can initiate ideas and put them forward for discussion. But in each case, it's to be consulted, not necessarily obeyed.
Exactly. And also don't forget, this council is composed of senior experts in the different professions. You didn't say that. That's what is important, that the council will be comprised of senior experts from the professions, doctors, lawyers, engineers.
Can I interrupt and give the audience the details? You shared them with me. The total membership of this Council of State will be 36 people. 27, you said, will be nominated by civil society organizations, by the professions, by business and the private sector, by academics and NGOs. In other words, 27 out of 36 will be people of distinction.
Two-thirds.
Two-thirds.
Yes. Of the total.
And the remaining 9 will be nominated by the Prime Minister and the leader of the opposition, which means the composition of this council is weighted very heavily in favor of non-politicians. They are 3 times more than politicians.
in favor of civil society leaders and representatives of civil society. And also, don't forget, we have suggested that 40% of the total composition of this council would be young people below the age of 40. So the
Yes,
young people
that's
of
very
the streets,
important. Why is it important that pretty close to 40% should be people below the age of 40? And you've also said 40% must be women. Why are those two important stipulations?
because they're important sections of our population. They're important sections of our citizenry.
So you
And
want to ensure that 50% of the population, which is women, are adequately and properly represented. And you also want to
51
show
actually. In Sri Lanka is 51 women.
that's a remarkable and laudable number. Truly it is. But you want to ensure that women are adequately and properly represented, and you want to ensure that the young, because Sri Lanka has a very young population, and you want to believe they should be there.
Yes, 60%. I haven't checked this, but I'm told it's correct. At the next elections, which would be in 3 years, 60% of our voting population would be under the age of 40.
And this Council of State will serve for 5 years.
Parallel to the government.
Parallel to the government. So each government will have an opportunity to create a fresh Council of State when its term of office begins.
Yes.
The clear impression I get when I take an overview of your proposals, and they are, as I said in the introduction, both comprehensive and sweeping, but the clear impression I get is whether you look at the membership of the Constitutional Council, where 7 people have to be from distinguished professions and academia, or you look at the membership of the Council of State, where 27 out of 36 have to be from civil society, or whether you look at the person who first becomes prime minister and then becomes president of the interim government, he's an independent person. You are promoting civil society in all its different manifestations to a role above politicians, or at least equal to politicians. Your governance structure gives a lot of weightage to civil society and distinguished people, side by side with MPs.
Yes, because the country has lost faith in the political leadership of this country. One of the major demands is that all 225 members of parliament should go home. Since independence, we have had good governments, but I would say the rot began in 1977 when a certain president created himself. We had a bicameral system. We had a prime minister who was the head of government, and we had a nominal head of state, not an executive president. But in 77, a certain prime minister brought in this new constitution and created an executive presidency with excessive powers.
I don't want to embarrass you by naming him, but I think the audience will require some hint of who we're talking about. You're talking about
President Jayawardena of the United National Party. And from that time, the progressive parties were on the roads. The SLFP, the left parties were then strong. I myself, my husband Vijay, we used to protest on the roads in all kinds of protests against the executive presidency. I came in as a president, promising to abolish it within 1 year. I brought in a new constitution, which had 2 major sections. One was to give maximum rights to the minorities, the Tamil and Muslim people in this case in Sri Lanka. And the other major part was to abolish the executive presidency unconditionally. I did not have 2/3 majority in parliament. I did everything I could to get it. Ranil Wickremesinghe was then the leader of the opposition with a fairly big opposition. And he refused steadfastly to give me the votes. Finally, I only needed 7 votes. Quite a number of his MPs resigned and came over to the government because they said that they agreed with my constitution and all that. But I was short of 7 votes and I couldn't bring that in. So since then, this thing has been festering against the executive presidents. And the executive presidents have used, from time to time, not all of them, these excessive powers very, very wrongly. They have violated human rights. He have violated fundamental rights of the Tamil people, of the Sinhalese people, of everybody. So that has to go.
And that is why the counterpart that you're creating is a system where you are institutionalizing a critical role for civil society, and in particular, distinguished members who've achieved success in their fields. And therefore, this is a political system where there is a major role for, how shall I describe it, experts, technocrats, and professionals. They will be part of the governance structure. They may not be part of government, but they are part of the governance structure.
Correct. Now, this again is because in Sri Lanka, the socio-political culture has deteriorated so much. I'm not going to analyze that now. Some of us are writing about it. I also have an intellectual hat to me since I retired from active politics. So the socio-political culture has deteriorated so much that more than 2/3 of parliament at the moment have not even passed their A-level exams, the GC advanced level exams. Quite a lot of them have not even passed their ordinary level. So that is one of the major reasons. So
In
therefore,
other
they are,
words, forgive me interrupting you, but in other words, this governance structure, which gives such a critical role to experts, technocrats, and professionals, is making up for the fact that many Sri Lankan MPs have not got the educational credentials necessary to govern effectively. That's what you're doing, although you haven't put it as bluntly as I have.
no, that's not the main reason. That's not the main reason, because hopefully now with this massive change in the political scene that has occurred with these protesters and all that, at the next elections, the young people in Galface Green are not just not violent young people; they're educated young people, a lot of them.
Absolutely.
So hopefully a lot of them will get into parliament, and that will change with the next parliament. The major reason is to, of course, to alleviate the incapacity of the present, most of the present people in parliament, but more than that, whoever comes in the until the socio-cultural political, the socio-political, sorry, culture, the socio-political culture of the country changes, even good people who come into parliament and into power will be tempted to become corrupt, and
Absolutely.
and therefore destroy the country, not only because they are robbing, but also because they don't do what is right for the country. They bring in projects that we don't need, they don't do the projects that we need, and so on. So this the major reason is, at the moment, to change political culture in a country will take several years. We think we can bring in the new constitution or the amendments within a month or two, but then to get into that culture, to the practice, it will take a few years.
Absolutely.
Until then, whoever runs government, because we have run amok, parliament, the members of parliament have run amok in trying to run the government. This is to bring checks and balances to a government.
Which is always essential. We're coming to the end of this interview, President Kumaratunga. I'll say for the audience that your proposals, which are comprehensive and sweeping, comprise two parts. There are those to do with the Council of State and the Constitutional Council, which are long term and will continue and will determine the future governments hereafter. But there's the interim stage that is critical at the moment. And that hinges upon Gotabaya Rajapaksa appointing an independent-minded person, not necessarily a serving MP, but a distinguished person from outside as PM, resigning, and then that independent person becoming Prime Minister, and that interim government lasts for 6 months. It then proceeds to both tackle the economic crisis and also abolish the executive presidency. How likely is it that that first critical interim stage will happen? Because Gotabaya Rajapaksa has tried to outflank you. He's appointed a prime minister. Ranil Wickremesinghe found 4 ministers on Saturday. If he gets support from the Sirisena 14 MPs of the SLFP, he will have a clear majority in parliament. In which case, how does your interim structure even get an opening?
Ask me another.
What does that answer mean? Can you interpret it for me?
No, because the situation is so volatile. All kinds of discussions are going on. various alliances are being hatched. So I can't give you a definite answer. All I can say is this is the best thing that can happen. I hope that the majority of the members of parliament will realize, at least the opposition, the majority of the opposition, which is quite strong in numbers, though they don't have the majority, that they will realize that for once they have to put country and the people before themselves, and they will have to think what is best for the country.
Can
And
I put
even
this?
if the government is trying to canvass people, offering them all kinds of material benefits to come into government, uh, but even that, I don't think it can last unless this government is based on a clear policy. Even Ranil Wickremesinghe has still not got a clear policy. A clear policy not only to find some money, begging for money from various institutions, international institutions and countries, but what are the policies we are going to adopt to correct the economy, which has been so destroyed.
Can I interrupt and say this? It seems to me, and I think the audience will get the same feeling, that your interim stage, which then leads to the constitutional amendments we've discussed, all depends upon what I call the Wickremesinghe experiment failing. If it doesn't fail, your proposals don't get an open door. But if it does fail, and I think you're anticipating it will fail, and I think you're anticipating it'll fail pretty quickly, then the door is wide open for your proposals. Am I right?
No, not quite. Two things can happen. It can fail terribly, and then the door is open for some things like this. I have already discussed this with many party leaders. Ranil Wickremesinghe was also invited to that discussion. He did not come, or nobody from his party came. I have also had the occasion to discuss this with the leaders of the young people who are leading the protests in Goldface Green. I have discussed this with civil society, political parties, civil society, and the young people. Some of the young people, I won't say all. And most of them think this is a good idea.
So right? You have popular support behind you.
I don't know whether they will finally support it, but I'm only putting the idea. It's up to them to operate it. I am not going to take up positions to operate it. So, but even for the sake of the country, I hope not Ranil Wickremesinghe himself, but this government will succeed in at least correcting the economy, the major economic ills. In which case they'll have to form a new government. They cannot go on only with the SLPP. They will at some time, even now Ranil is trying to bring in the others. And if that happens, still my proposal is a possibility.
Absolutely. There are many
ways. May I tell you something? That possibility to become a reality will have to be agreed to and implemented by the present lot in parliament.
Yes, indeed.
I can't see most of them doing it. They are
and
only
the present lot in parliament are a majority of SLPP, i.e. Rajapaksa party MPs, and that's the other problem. But we've discussed your proposals in some length. You've also spoken to me about how you view the Ranil Wickremesinghe prime ministership. I thank you for this interview. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. It's been a pleasure to discuss with you what you believe are the necessary, comprehensive, and sweeping structural changes that are necessary to save your country. I wish you the best of luck, President Kumaratunga, and thank you for making time for me.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed that interview.
Thank you. Take care. Stay safe.
You too.